It's hard to believe with the release of Avengers Infinity War that the Marvel Cinematic Universe has nearly completed Phase 3. The future for the Avengers might be uncertain, but their previous adventures remained frozen in time, like Captain America throughout most of the 20th century. Hey, I'm Brendan with Cinematica, and we're here to count down 107 facts about the Avengers Age of Ultron. Don't forget to subscribe and click the bell icon to become part of the notification squad. Avengers Age of Ultron released in May 2015. It acts as a sequel to 2012's The Avengers and is the 11th film in the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Joss Whedon wrote and directed the film. He's primarily known for writing and heading the previous Marvel blockbuster The Avengers, among many other great cultural touchstones that he played a significant role in creating, like Buffy the Vampire Slayer and his work on The Astonishing X-Men. The second Avengers was named after the 2013 Marvel comic crossover storyline Age of Ultron. However, Kevin Feige, one of the main producers for the MCU, explained that the particular comic in question wasn't the source for the movie's primary storyline. Feige revealed that the crew came up with a few titles that included the words of Ultron, but Age of Ultron suited the overall attitude better than most of the other ones did. So they borrowed the title but took storylines from decades of Avengers adventures. An early script set the premise that Ultron was created by the government to eliminate the need for Avengers. Ultron was meant to turn on its creators, resulting in the Avengers teaming up once more to stop him. That draft, you can imagine, was changed significantly. Viewers don't necessarily have to see the first Avengers to enjoy the sequel. In fact, Whedon took some notes from The Godfather Part 2. It was a classic known for its ability to stand out as a very different movie compared to its predecessor. We also owe the movie's high potential to its stellar cast, and that came with its fair share of preparation. It took Joss Whedon a year to convince Aaron Taylor Johnson to play the character of Pietro Maximoff, aka Quicksilver. Initially, Taylor Johnson expressed worry for the length of Marvel contracts and the time constraints they would put on future projects. Fortunately, Taylor Johnson ultimately signed on when he heard Elizabeth Olsen, his castmate in 2014's Godzilla, would join him for most of the film. This power duo is what we call in the business world a work marriage. However, this speed bump was only the beginning of a long battle to have Quicksilver appear in Age of Ultron. The character had previously appeared in X-Men Days of Future Past, and he was a possible character for both X-Men The Last Stand and Avengers Assemble. Legal complexities over the license to the role resulted in the hero's omission in both films. Eventually, both Marvel and Fox Studios announced a resolution in regards to the licensing of the character. The result came to Quicksilver appearing in Age of Ultron as well as the X-Men sequel, though under specific parameters. There would be no allusion to his relations with the X-Men or Magneto in any Avengers film, and there would be no reference to Quicksilver's membership in the Avengers in any X-Men film. Also, the word mutant, it wouldn't drop in any Marvel film. Not on Fox's watch. It didn't end there, though. The day after Fox announced Evan Peters as Quicksilver for the X-Men franchise, Marvel and Fox entered the legal boxing ring yet again over specific rights for the character. This conflict included the issue of whether Peters would be allowed to portray Quicksilver in any other film outside the X-Men franchise. The battle necessitated a different actor to play Quicksilver in any Marvel film. So, no Peter, sorry bud, you aren't invited to eat shawarma with RDJ or Scarlett Johansson. While the role of Wanda Maximoff, also known as Scarlet Witch, ultimately went to Elizabeth Olsen, other actresses considered for the position included Lindsay Lohan, Saoirse Ronan, Sasha Pierza, and Mila Kunis. Emily Blunt and Ruth Wilson were both considered for the role of Carol Danvers, aka the Magnificent Ms. Marvel, for Avengers Age of Ultron. This idea got scrapped when Marvel Studios announced that Ms. Marvel would have a solo film for herself premiering in 2019. The Marvel Ultimates comic is known for featuring a controversial, incestuous storyline between Quicksilver and Scarlet Witch. According to Elizabeth Olsen, while this particular aspect would not be overtly present in the film, she and Aaron Taylor Johnson, quote, played around with certain parts of that fictional relationship. It's not too far-fetched. The two played loving spouses in the modern remake of Godzilla. Thanos was allegedly supposed to be the next villain for the Avengers to face off with, as hinted by the post-credits scene in the first film. Fortunately, this character is put off for another movie because Joss Whedon opted for a more grounded villain, someone or something meant to show the parallels of evil for the real world. The original Avengers team features 6 heroes. Tony Stark, aka Iron Man, is portrayed by Robert Downey Jr. Tony Stark relies on his technology, money, and brilliant mind to stand equal with superpowered beings and gods. Steve Rogers, aka Captain America, is portrayed by Chris Evans. He begins as a frail man, but after being injected with the super soldier serum, he gained immense strength and helped defeat the terrorist organization Hydra during World War II. The Captain, Frozen Ice place from the 40s until the present day, which means he's technically several decades older than his appearance and abilities would indicate. Cap is still adjusting to his new circumstances, but his timeless sense of right and wrong help guide the Avengers through difficult moral dilemmas. Bruce Banner, aka the Incredible Hulk, is played by Mark Ruffalo, who assumed the role in the first Avengers film. Edward Norton had played the character in his previous solo film. Bruce Banner is a brilliant but sensitive scientist. As a result of a lab accident, when he gets angry, he can transform into a gigantic beast known as the Hulk. Thor, the Norse god of thunder, is played by Chris Hemsworth. He's initially from the planet Asgard. Thor is on Earth to keep the peace, mainly from his disruptive brother Loki, who was the villain in the first Avengers film. Natasha Romanoff, aka Black Widow, is played by Scarlett Johansson. She's a human spy who's plagued with doubts about her morals. She's introduced as an agent of S.H.I.E.L.D. organization, but has since closely associated with the Avengers team. Clint Barton, aka Hawkeye, is played by Jeremy Renner. He too is a regular human. His only superpower is being a skilled archer. In the first Avengers film, Hawkeye spent most of the story as an unwilling accomplice to the bad guys as his mind became possessed by Loki. In Age of Ultron, we learn that Barton decided to retire and live with his family on a quiet farm. That original team of 6 expanded in Age of Ultron to include a few new faces, most of which exist in previous films. Sam Wilson, aka the Falcon, played by Anthony Mackie, made his Marvel debut in the second Captain America solo film, The Winter Soldier. James Rhodey Rhodes, aka War Machine, is played by Don Cheadle. The character first appeared in the original Iron Man film, though Terrence Howard played him then. Cheadle assumed the role in Iron Man 2 and has maintained it ever since. The original idea for the Avengers sequel was to make a film smaller in scope, with more of a focus on the characters' relationships. The hope was that this would build intimacy, which would make the film seem organic and avoid rehashing the first Avengers. Both Joss Whedon and Marvel president Kevin Feige spoke to these intentions during the development process between the first and second Avengers movies. On another note, the Abomination, the villain from 2008's Incredible Hulk standalone film, was going to be an antagonist in this film, or at least a secondary villain. Ultimately, the character was written out, and Tim Roth was unable to reprise his role as the horrifying creature. Avengers Age of Ultron was originally planned to be Robert Downey Jr.'s last appearance as Tony Stark, but that theory died when Downey signed on for Captain America Civil War in 2016. 3 stunt doubles were hired to take on Scarlett Johansson's more challenging scenes due to her pregnancy, leading to a lot of confusion and hilarity on set. Embarrassingly, Chris Evans even admitted to saying hello and starting a conversation with one of them, only to discover that the person he was talking to was not Scarlett Johansson. Evidently, finding the right actor to play Ultron was a no-brainer, as Whedon proclaimed that James Spader was his first and only choice when it came to casting the character. The reason? Spader had that hypnotic voice, which was, quote, eerily calm and compelling while also being very human and humorous. In fact, on James Spader's first day on set, the cast was so impressed by his performance that they applauded him after his first take. Because Ultron was 8 to 9 feet tall, the 5', 10-inch James Spader had to wear an antenna-like contraption made of a thick piece of wire with 2 red balls attached to the top. This prop went up against his entire back and 3 feet above his head. This whole setup existed solely for the actors who would share scenes with him. After all, they needed a reference point for where the robot's eyes would be, which were, you guessed it, those 2 red balls. Elizabeth Olsen admitted to the costume being sort of a distraction on set. The story goes that Spader would be giving an intense performance, and out of instinct, Olsen would look at the actor rather than the balls representing his eyes. Much to everybody's amusement, whenever this happened, Aaron Taylor Johnson would yell, "Red balls! Look at his balls, Lizzie!" to get her to look back in the right direction. Taylor Johnson had to go through his share of changes just as his character Quicksilver hopped through some customary adjustments. For starters, producers thought Johnson was too bulky and robust to portray a runner, and he was asked to lose some muscle mass. For his running scenes, Taylor Johnson was filmed with a high-speed camera and then shot a second time running at normal speed against a green screen. The 2 images were then spliced together during editing to give the illusion of a slimmer figure. Alexandra Byrne, the veteran costume designer for Age of Ultron, was tasked with dressing the superheroes for a pivotal party scene at the beginning of the film. Since it was the first time that Thor ever sported party clothes, Byrne worked closely with Chris Hemsworth to find the correct combination of jeans, jacket, and shirt that would fit his shape but not look too themed or showy on camera. Robert Downey Jr. wanted a very sophisticated look, as he always does. Subsequently, it was off to London's famous Savile Row for tailoring. After 5 fittings, Tony Stark emerged looking, well, absolutely fabulous. Many of the Avengers got upgrades in their gear, thanks to the Tony Stark and Bruce Banner duo. Hawkeye not only played a more significant role in the sequel, but he also got a new uniform. The new look blended elements from his original Marvel Comics outfit, his Ultimate Marvel outfit, and his Ronin costume. Might be weird to hear, but Hulk almost rocked his gray look as he first appeared in The Incredible Hulk #1, 1962. Back in the day, it was hard for colorist Stan Goldberg to keep the shade of gray consistent, so Stan Lee changed him to green. Writer Peter David later revisited the idea of the Grey Hulk in issue number 302 in 1984, with Bruce Banner developing associative identity disorder. The different colored Hulks represented different personalities that the character battled. Grey Hulk appeared more crafty and devious, but Green Hulk was stronger and more dominant. While this concept loomed over Age of Ultron, it never made it into the final product. One of the scenes in which the Grey Hulk would be prominent was the big fight between Iron Man and the Hulk. The effects team at Industrial Light and Magic initially planned to feature a gray-colored Hulk instead of green. However, ILM just changed his eyes to make them look more sullen when under the control of Scarlet Witch. The original Incredible Hulk television series star Lou Ferrigno reprised his beastly role as the voice of the Hulk for Age of Ultron. It wasn't his first time returning though. Ferrigno had previously played the role via compositing with other sounds in the film, from 2008's The Incredible Hulk to 2012's The Avengers. Brian Tyler, the composer for the film, stated that the musical score acted as an homage to the works of legendary composer John Williams. He specifically noted that the musical cues drew from Superman, the original Star Wars trilogy, and Raiders of the Lost Ark. Danny Elfman, another composer and also the lead singer and songwriter for the band Oingo Boingo, also contributed music to the score, using Alan Silvestri's theme from the first film to create a hybrid tune. In the teaser trailer, an eerie rendition of I've Got No Strings was heard and recognized by audiences in every nook and cranny of the world. Originally from Disney's Pinocchio, the song refers to Ultron being free from his master, Tony Stark. Luckily, because Marvel Studios' parent company is Disney, the studio didn't have to pay any royalties for using the song. Just to clear up some confusion, Dr. Hank Pym, aka the Ant-Man, created Ultron in the comics. In this Avengers sequel, Ultron is a dormant project originally developed by Tony Stark. To keep production top secret, the working title for the film was After Party. And the production was intense. ILM had to develop a whole new motion capture system for the film called Muse to better capture the actors' facial and body movements to combine different takes of the same performance. This technology was mostly created with Ultron and the Hulk in mind. An extraordinary asset to the production in Seoul was utilizing drones and remote control cars to place cameras in places that never could have been achieved by camera operators or helicopters. The production enlisted the expertise of brothers Men Stru Pa, a Korean national champion in drone flying, and Pak Min Koo, the Korean national champion in remote car racing. The scene in which Ultron instructs his drones to drive and then latch themselves onto the truck in Seoul took almost a full year to complete, 360 days to be exact, which is 6 days shy of a leap year. Only one animator worked on this particular shot, and upon completion, he received a party and a bottle of champagne for his efforts. Production designer Charles Wood built a ginormous new Avengers Tower set for Age of Ultron, thus creating the most expensive set ever assembled for a Marvel film at the time. Much of the movie takes place in that very Avengers Tower and on its many different levels. A vast expanse of glass was created to show an iconic view of New York City. The multiple environments were structured and connected to the film's production, designed to have the ability to move from floor to floor with incredible ease. While the film was mostly shot at Shepperton Studios in Surrey, England, additional footage was filmed in Italy, South Korea, Bangladesh, New York City, and various locations around England. With more than 3,000 visual effects shots, Avengers Age of Ultron featured the most VFX shots of any Marvel movie upon its release, topping the previous record holder Guardians of the Galaxy, which had 2,750 VFX shots. Cinematographer Ben Davis, who also worked with Marvel on Guardians of the Galaxy, shot the film with a central unit of 3 Arri Alexa cameras. Davis explained that although the Alexa was Marvel's preferred camera, it wasn't necessarily a standard. The only non-negotiable requirement was that the film had to be shot in digital. Davis also utilized Blackmagic Design's pocket cinema cameras to meet the needs of the second unit kit. The second unit typically requires a fleet of smaller cameras that are less expensive and rugged enough to handle numerous trials by fire. In regards to the camera system, Whedon stated that Ultron was shot very differently from the first film, utilizing lots of long lenses. The method was that he aimed to shoot the film almost like a documentary. Before shooting began, Davis sat down and planned out Age of Ultron's lighting using a pen, paper, and a floor plan of the set. He said that on a production of the film's scale, he had to be sure that all the lighting was just right even before filming began. We'll get deeper into the subject later, but it's a known fact by many that Joss Whedon wanted to lengthen Thor's poolside visions, and those scenes in general. However, executives issued an ultimatum stating that if they were extended, it would be in the place of Hawkeye's farm scenes. Whedon chose to keep the farm scenes. This film marks the first time in the Marvel Cinematic Universe that Thor appears in a film without Loki. Tom Hiddleston did film a scene reprising Loki, but it was ultimately cut from the final version as Joss Whedon felt it didn't play well with the rest of the film as a whole. Each Avenger, except for for Black Widow tries to lift Thor's hammer and naturally fails. Ironically, in the comics, Black Widow was deemed worthy to wield it in an alternate reality storyline, specifically Natasha Romanoff of Earth 23223. In the comics, not many characters have been deemed worthy of lifting Thor's hammer Mjolnir. Captain America stands as one of the few worthy members. In the film, he was even seen to be nudging it just a little bit, to Thor's dismay. As we all know, there are a lot of differences between what goes down in the cinematic universe and the infinite supply of Marvel comics. There's one in particular worth mentioning, however. In the comics, the gem on Vision's forehead is the Solar Jewel, allowing Vision to absorb ambient energy for power and also emitting a beam for defense. In Age of Ultron, this gem was changed to the Mind Stone, which is one of the stones fated to be placed on the Infinity Gauntlet. When Tony Stark tries to lift Thor's hammer, he jokes by saying, "I'm reinstituting Prima Noctis." Prima Noctis was allegedly a law in late medieval Europe by which a feudal lord could claim the first night, implying the night after the wedding, with any bride in his dominion to have sexual relations with her. This practice was depicted in Braveheart. Tony provided Black Widow with some newly powered fighting batons based on eskrima sticks, a weapon typically used in Filipino martial arts, and famously by the DC superhero Nightwing. Hawkeye also received an upgrade to his weaponry with many new arrow tips to serve a variety of purposes. Hawkeye's quiver also changed, becoming more automated and faster loading, and capable of holding, wait for it, 9 whole arrows. When Tony Stark goes to upload his new AI partner Friday, it's a reference to the film His Girl Friday, which Joss Whedon often lists as one of his primary influences on writing strong female characters. There is another drive labeled Jocasta. In the comics, Jocasta was an AI created by Ultron. Her mind and body became modeled after Janet Van Dyne, aka the Wasp. She would eventually turn against Ultron and join the Avengers. Veronica, Bruce Banner's creation that houses the extra Hulkbuster parts, is a nod to the Riverdale Rascals from the Archie comics. In the comics, Archie Andrews is a high schooler who's torn between two women that love him, Betty and Veronica. Banner already had a girlfriend, Betty Ross, so this armor was named Veronica to show the other side of Banner's personality, the Hulk. When Scarlet Witch tries to mind control Hawkeye, he neutralizes her and quips, "I tried the mind control thing. Not a fan." This scene is a reference to Jeremy Renner being openly displeased with his character being mind controlled by Loki during most of the first Avengers film in 2012. Ultron is seen wearing a red cloak during part of the film. In his first appearance in the comics, Avengers number 54, released in 1968, he wore one throughout the issue under the alias known as the Crimson Cowl. The Mark XLV Iron Man used in the final battle is inspired by the heroic age armor seen in the Marvel comics. Age of Ultron features the debut of Stan Lee reciting his famous catchphrase "Excelsior" for the first time in a film within the Marvel Cinematic Universe. Stan also plays a World War II veteran who drinks Thor's 1,000-year-old Asgardian alcohol. While the liquor is fictional, Stan did serve in the army during World War II. At age 20, he joined in 1942 and got assigned to the Signal Corps. He repaired telegraph poles and other communications equipment, before transferring to the Training Film Division where he wrote manuals, film scripts, and even did some cartooning. During the Hulk vs. Iron Man fight, Hulk gets tossed at a truck that says Crawford. In the comics, Bruce Banner's mentor, Dr. Jeffrey Crawford, becomes his enemy called Ravage, who first appears in Rampaging Hulk number 2 from 1998. Easter egg, or just a generic truck company? You decide! During the scene where Tony Stark witnesses the future, he sees the Avengers dead and Captain America's shield shattered. It's only been broken a few times before in the comics, but it could be a reference to the Infinity Gauntlet, a 6-issue series published in 1991 where Thanos murders all the superheroes. One of the last is Captain America, whose shield gets destroyed. The subplot in the movie where Thor tries to learn more about his futuristic vision by visiting a mystical well refers to the Well of the Weird, which first appeared in Thor Annual 11 in 1983. It's no secret that producer Kevin Feige is a huge Star Wars fan, which makes it as no surprise that every Marvel Phase 2 film has a reference to the second Star Wars movie, The Empire Strikes Back. The scene in question is Luke getting his hand sliced off by his father, Darth Vader. The second Avengers continues the tradition when Ultron severs Ulysses Klaue's arm. New York City's Grand Central Station statue transportation, designed by French sculptor Jules-Philippe Coton, met its demise when it was crashed into by a Chitauri Leviathan during the first Avengers film. Age of Ultron reveals Grand Central statue to be newly constructed, depicting a tribute to the first responders who came to the city's aid after the first attack. Unlike in the comics where her son Amadeus plays the pivotal role of scientific discovery, Helen Cho took to the spotlight in the film, both for her advances in human healing as well as the melding of human tissue with artificial intelligence. While Amadeus was known for devoting his powers to the side of Marvel's greatest heroes, his presence in the MCU seems like a long shot for now. During Captain America's vision of reuniting with Peggy Carter, the band supplying the music in the background can be seen for a split second, revealing them to be the Roy Thomas Players. This scene is a reference to comic writer Roy Thomas, who co-created and updated several heroes and villains, most of whom have been featured in the MCU. His roster includes everything from Ultron and Vision to Yellow Jacket and Adam Warlock. Both Marvel producer Kevin Feige and director Joss Whedon let fans know ahead of time that there is no post-credit scene at the end of Age of Ultron. There is a mid-credit scene, but as Whedon told Entertainment Weekly, they wanted people to know beforehand, so they didn't sit in the theater for an extra 10 minutes. Raise your hands, who missed the memo and did that anyways? You may have seen War Machine in TV commercials and trailers, but where's Pepper Potts? Age of Ultron is the first film where Stark appears without Pepper Potts. Both he and Thor have a humorous exchange in the movie, explaining why their lady loves are missing in action. Throughout the film and in the trailers released for the movie, Ultron compares himself to Pinocchio. Coincidentally, his creator, Robert Downey Jr., is playing the role of Geppetto in an upcoming reboot of Pinocchio. So the villain wasn't actually that far off from the truth. Chris Evans and Chris Hemsworth stated on separate occasions that Joss Whedon had not told them the plot of the sequel, with Evans claiming that he didn't even know the title of the film until the official announcement at San Diego Comic-Con in 2013. Additionally, Hemsworth and Kobe Smulders, who plays Maria Hill in the film, both admitted to not knowing exactly who Ultron was on separate occasions. According to the DVD commentary for Age of Ultron, Robert Downey Jr. improvised his "Hello Dear" line when working on the tractor. Whedon enjoyed the line so much that he admitted to kicking himself for not having thought of it. The Hulk was initially supposed to fly off in the Quinjet into space, but this idea got put on hold because Marvel didn't want people to think they were setting up a Planet Hulk film. They can't fool us though. Hulk did eventually end up in outer space. Former Ant-Man director Edgar Wright wrote an after-credits scene for the movie, but the final product didn't make it to the cut due to his ambitious plans for the Ant-Man universe. As with any film, there were various designs for the characters finished by concept artists. These included a more comic-accurate take on Ultron with his trademark jack-o'-lantern face, as well as an alternate Quicksilver outfit that included a green shirt with a white lightning bolt as a nod to his original costume. Chris Hemsworth was unhappy with Thor's role in the movie, saying it was boring to play. He recalls telling Kevin Feige, "I feel like I'm dying here. I feel like I have handcuffs on," which is what ultimately led to the character adopting a more comedic yet still arrogant personality in Thor Ragnarok and Infinity War. Andy Serkis was initially brought in just as a motion capture consultant to help Mark Ruffalo and James Spader. However, Jeremy Latcham then stumbled upon some online fan art of Serkis as the Black Panther villain, Claw, and Joss Whedon liked it so much that he decided to cast Serkis as Claw in the movie. Hawkeye and his wife named their new baby boy after Black Widow and Quicksilver. His name is Nathaniel for Natasha, Pietro after Quicksilver, Barton. Actor Aaron Himmelstein, who played a S.H.I.E.L.D. agent intimidated by Rumlau in Captain America Winter Soldier, returns as one of the new agents on Fury's helicarrier. The New Avengers facility is a reference to the New Avengers comic, which initially featured a team of both old and new heroes, just like at the end of the movie. Deadline Hollywood calculated the net profit of the film to be $382.32 million. When factoring together production budgets, P&A, talent participations, and other costs, with box office grosses and ancillary revenues from VOD to DVD to TV, the film placed 4th on their list of 2015's most valuable blockbusters. Everyone's their own worst critic. In May of 2015, Whedon was very upfront with the press about his clashes with Marvel over scenes he wanted to keep, from Hawkeye visiting his family at the farmhouse to the Avengers dream sequences. He was also not happy for Marvel being so adamant about keeping a Thor and Eric cave scene in the final picture. Whedon later apologized for his harsh comments, but hey, every artist has their day. Whedon also took the mixed critical response to Ultron very personally, revealing that Ultron was the most complicated response he'd ever gotten. His way of coping allegedly involved going into the fetal position for about 8 months. Whedon was not happy with his work on the film and refused to return to direct future Avengers movies, although the cast, especially Mark Ruffalo, lobbied for his creative direction. To conclude, Whedon was so exhausted after working with the sequel that he decided not to direct the 2-part Avengers Infinity War sequels. That job instead went to MCU's newest dynamic directorial duo, the Russo brothers, who gained acclaim for their work on TV shows like Community and Arrested Development. You may also know the pair from their MCU directorial work like Captain America Civil War and The Winter Soldier. Every movie has its fair share of controversies. About 200 small-town German movie theaters decided to boycott the film after Disney demanded 53% of ticket sales, without taking into account the sizes of small-town venues. Traditionally, a studio film takes about 47.7% of the opening weekend box office. office. Disney has also cut the money it would usually contribute towards advertising and advances for 3D glasses. Not a great look, Disney. The film received mixed reviews upon release in China due to poor translations. The translations were said to be too literal, with some Chinese critics assuming the work was merely run through Google Translate. But don't think that made a dent in the film's performance. Avengers Age of Ultron grossed $429,894,783 domestically, and $1,322,833,715 in worldwide sales. At the time of its release, Avengers Age of Ultron had the second most significant US opening ever, but still fell short of the first Avengers film. As of 2018, both mega blockbusters bow to the reigning success of Marvel's top cat, Black Panther. According to a small portion of analysts, the opening weekend box office gross was lower than expected because of the weekend's featured boxing match between Floyd Mayweather and Manny Pacquiao. On October 2014, Marvel announced a two-part sequel to Avengers Age of Ultron, titled Avengers Infinity War. Part 1 was scheduled to be released on May 4th, 2018, with Part 2 scheduled for May 3rd, 2019. Of course, the date for Part 1 got bumped up to April 27th, and Part 2 later lost its Part 2 subtitle, being renamed simply Avengers 4. The subtitle will be announced at a later date once Infinity War has had time to set in. Well, that about wraps us up. Once again, I'm Brendan, and thanks for watching 107 facts about Avengers Age of Ultron. What other Marvel or DC movies would you like us to cover? Comment below and let us know. Don't forget to click that bell icon to become part of the notification squad, and subscribe to Cinematica.